Just like that old Canadian movie's title, it was a great idea at the time, but in execution, the first season of the Philadelphia Blazers was so beyond the beyond that it only lasted one season before it moved to Vancouver and later to Calgary. But the logo was tremendous, the color scheme was tremendous, but the implementation of the franchise was off the rails. Now, the Blazers were an ice hockey team in the WHA for the 72-73 season based in Philadelphia. How in the hell is two major league hockey teams going to work in the same Philadelphia market where it barely worked before in the previous years? This was like the pre Broad Street Bullies years in Philadelphia. The team's home ice was the venerable Philadelphia Convention Hall and Civic Center. The franchise was originally intended to be based in Miami and called the Screaming Eagles, but due to money problems and lack of suitable arena, the franchise instead moved to Philadelphia. After only one campaign in Philadelphia, the team relocated to Vancouver to start the 74 season and became the Vancouver Blazers. 2 years later, the franchise moved again, this time to Calgary. It was called the Calgary Cowboys, keeping its basic red scheme. In 77, the franchise folded. Now, in June 72, businessmen Bernard Brown and James Cooper were granted the rights to the Screaming Eagles, along with the players who were under contract with the team, including goalie Bernie Perron from businessman Herb Martin. Brown and Cooper then moved the franchise to Philadelphia and renamed it the Blazers. They also, for some reason, signed Boston Bruins semi-star Derek Sanderson. Although charisma to burn, he wasn't worth the 5-year contract for $2.6 million he was getting, which at the time was the highest salary ever paid to a pro sports player. The signing produced a great deal of publicity, but Sanderson was bought out after a handful of games, since many hockey pundits predicted that Sanderson's prior career in the Belly did not warrant such a salary and he would probably end up back in Boston NHL, which he did. Now, the Blazers had high hopes going into the inaugural WHA season with its stars as Perron, Sanderson, and Sanderson's former teammate, John McKenzie. It was named the team's player coach. However, their hopes were soon dashed as McKenzie suffered injury in a preseason game, and Perron and Sanderson also suffered injuries. The team's first home game on October 13, 72 was also a disaster when a Zamboni driver drove on the playing surface after arriving late at the arena, and the improperly made ice could not support his weight and crack open, forcing the game to be rescheduled. The only game, I think, in major sports history where the game was delayed by bad ice. Now, the team lost 60 of its first 20 games before Perron and McKenzie returned. During this time, McKenzie was replaced as coach by Phil Watson. Also, Sanderson left the team after only 8 games, in which he had 3 goals and 3 assists, and considerable controversy, as the owners paid him $500,000 to void the Mariners' contract, and he returned to the Bruins, where he would never win a Stanley Cup with them again. Now, the Blazers improved as the season went on. The great Andre Lacroix led the league in points, and Danny Lawson scored 61 goals. They would prove to be the two of the WHA's biggest stars, and Lacroix would become the league's all-time leading career scorer. Coupled with Perron's goaltending, the team made the playoffs with a record of 38-40. However, Perron left the team after the first game in the playoffs, a 3-2 loss to the Crusaders, leaving netminding duties in the hands of backup Marcel Pal, who had not played in the NHL for almost 8 years and was then over 40 years of age, and 20-year-old Yves Archambault, whose total experience above juniors was 30 games in the EHL. The Blazers were quickly swept, lasting only a minimum of 4 games. Perron's agent, Howard J. Casper, claimed that money deposited in an escrow account to guarantee his full multi-year contract had been withdrawn by the team and that Perron would not return until the money was repaid. He also alleged that Perron was having trouble getting his regular salary and that the team was not paying medical expenses for him for recurrent ailments. Perron never rejoined the Blazers, returning to the Flyers the following season. Now, despite making a decent account of themselves on the ice, the Blazers were no match in the box office for the Flyers, who played at the then state-of-the-art Spectrum. While competing with an NHL team would likely have been difficult in the best of circumstances, for the Blazers matters were made worse as debut coincided with the Flyers becoming competitive on the ice, posting their first winning record before ultimately winning consecutive Stanley Cups in the 2 following seasons. With no reasonable hope of the Blazers overcoming poor attendance at the Civic Center, which averaged less than 50% of capacity, Brown and Cooper sold the Blazers to Jim Pattison after only 1 season, and of course Pattison moved the team to Vancouver. Now, the last active Blazers player in major pro hockey was Dave Hutchinson, retired after the '84 season. The last active Blazer at any level was Ron Plum, who played in England until 1986. So 38 40, 76 points, 288 goals for, 305 against. Now, going a little bit of deeper dive into the season, we're going to go over some basic aspects. They were 24 and 15 at home, but putty 14-25 on the road. Now, the alternate captains on the team, Versailles to help out Sanderson and Lacroix, were Brian Campbell, Jim Cardiff, Lacroix, and Derek Sanderson. So, now again, Danny Lawson led the team with 61 goals. Lacroix had 74 assists. Lacroix had 124 points. Jim Cardiff had 185 minutes of penalties. Bernie Perron had 33 wins and 3.61 average. Now, Cardiff was a very interesting cat, ladies and gentlemen. Played mostly defense in his career. He did play over 260 games in the WHA over a number of seasons with the Blazers, but never played in the NHL. Now, Internet Hockey Database mentions the fact that he had played in the AHL, CPHL, WHL, and CHL in all the years before, and ended up being, would get this, the Johnstown Jets of slapshot fame at the tail end of his career. But he had consecutive seasons of 100 minutes and penalties over 8 campaigns in minor and major pro. And I don't know how you can fight when you're 5'9", 175, but good luck with that. So just to recap the regular season, we talked to you about Lacroix and Danny Lawson. Lawson had 106 points. Johnny McKenzie had 78 points in 60 games, 28 goals. Brian Campbell had 73 points. Don Harriman had 72. Ron Plum was a 5-scoring defenseman with 51 points. Don Burgess had 42 points, 20 goals. Don O'Donoghue stayed at 4 times fast, 39 points in 74 games. Irv Spencer, number 2 defenseman, 227-29. Cardiff, number 3 defenseman, 324-37. Michel Plante, 25 points in 70 games. Richard Cambeau on defense, 19 points, 75 games. John McGold, Michel Boudreau, Camille Lapierre, John Bennett, Sanderson at 6 points, Pierre Henry, Derek Harker, Jean Gravel, Nick Polano, of course. Everyone knows him. Denny Meloche, not Jules' brother, played center a few games. Dave Hutchison, the later popular with the Leaf. Pierre Paiement, Claude Saint-Sauveur, Yves Archambault, Wayne Mazdell, Bernie Perron, Michel Goulot, Bob Brown, Jack Chip Chase, Tom Coninger, Sam Jalard, Frank Golominski, Larry Mavety, Darwin Mott, Morris's brother probably, Murray Myers, Michel Pal, and of course Danny Sullivan. So they had 5 goalies that year: Perron, Marcel Pal, Yves Archambault, Tom Coninger, and Danny Sullivan, and again 0-4 in the playoffs. McKenzie led all scores with 4 points, and it was a hard go. They did have a lot of talent, ladies and gentlemen, but not enough to get where they needed to go. And what was kind of interesting here, ladies and gentlemen, the Perron quitting, I think, was the best thing for the franchise, because I think it smartened them up a little bit as we go along. But ladies and gentlemen, it's kind of weird as it is. The Blazers had a lot of good young players, but a lot of older skaters. And Marcel Pal, Reja, started his career in 1945. So here it is, literally 23 years later, and he was out of major pro for almost a decade. Before that, his last season was 65 with the Rangers, and he was on and off with the Rangers from 1958 all the way up to 1965. So an interesting season. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there's a lot of Philadelphia Blazers memorabilia out there in Screaming Eagles. We're going to be posting some of this on the podcast, but it will always be a connection with Lacroix, Johnny McKenzie, and Sanderson. We think fondly of the Vancouver Blazers because, you know, it's so weird to say. The best publicity Vancouver ever got when the WHA played the Russian Summit Series, the game in Vancouver. It was a pretty well a full promotion of the West Coast W for the West Coast WHA fans. So that's the story of the very interesting and a very 1 year-ish. Philadelphia Blazers, if you like what they're doing here, we're a WJ Vintage Podcast. Let us know when to like, comment, subscribe, or share. And the people in the NHL always thought Danny Larson would be a 50-goal scorer, but it took the WHA to bring it out of him. So, thanks for listening. Bye.